The psychology of flow. Good morning. Last time we ended with Bandura's mechanism for believing in your own capability, a theory almost entirely about outcomes, about succeeding at specific goals. Today we ask a very different question. Forget whether you succeed for a moment. What does it actually feel like to be fully, completely absorbed in what you are doing right now? You already know this feeling, even if you've never had a name for it. Time disappears, self-consciousness disappears. You are not thinking about succeeding or failing. You are simply completely there. Today, we give that experience a name and a science. We arrive in the 1970s with a Hungarian-American psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, having survived the Second World War as a child in Europe. He became fascinated by a specific question. Why did some people he observed seem to maintain genuine engagement and even joy in their work and hobbies, while others with far more resources and comfort seemed chronically bored and dissatisfied? Mihaly began interviewing painters, rock climbers, chess players, and surgeons, people who regularly engage in demanding activities seemingly for their own sake, without obvious external reward. Again and again, they described a striking similar state: total absorption, effortless concentration, and a distorted, usually accelerated sense of time. In 1990, he published his landmark book simply titled Flow, giving his state its name. He highly defined flow as a state of complete immersion in an activity characterized by intense focus, a merging of action and awareness, a loss of self-consciousness, and a feeling that the activity itself is deeply rewarding, independent of any external outcome. Crucially, he identified the precise condition that produces this state, a careful balance between the challenge of a task and the person's skill level. Too much challenge relative to skill produces anxiety. Too little challenge relative to skill produces boredom. Flow lives in a narrow dynamic channel between the two. It is just difficult enough to demand your full attention, but not so difficult that it overwhelms your ability to meet it. As skill grows, the task must go harder too, or flow quietly disappears back into boredom. Sociologically, flow theory raises uncomfortable questions about how modern work and education are actually structured. Mihaly noted that many jobs, schools, and leisure activities are poorly designed for flow. Tasks are either too repetitive and understimulating or too overwhelming and poorly scaffolded, leaving people chronically anxious or chronically bored rather than genuinely engaged. This gave institutions a new practical design question. How do you structure a classroom, a job, or a team's workflow so that people are regularly matched with tasks that stretch their current skill level, rather than either patronizing or overwhelming them? It also reframed leisure itself. Flow research found that passive entertainment, like much television watching, rarely produces flow, while active hobbies, even difficult ones, often do, quietly challenging assumptions about what relaxation actually means for human well-being. Psychologically, flow theory became a cornerstone of the emerging field of positive psychology, which Mihaly helped found alongside Martin Seligman in the late 90s, a deliberate continuation of Maslow's earlier push to study human thriving, not just dysfunction. Flow also offered something neither Maslow nor Bandura fully captured: the idea that engagement itself, separate from achievement, needs satisfaction, or belief in success, is a core component of a well-lived life. It connected directly to research on intrinsic motivation and gave psychologists a measurable, describable state to study directly, rather than relying purely on people's abstract self-reports of happiness or fulfillment. But flow theory, too, has drawn genuine scrutiny. Critics point out that flow, while pleasurable and often highly productive, isn't automatically virtuous or healthy. A person can enter deep flow states while gambling, while playing manipulative video games engineered to exploit exactly their psychological mechanism, or while neglecting relationships and responsibilities entirely. Flow describes the quality of experience, not a moral compass. It says nothing about whether the activity producing it is actually good for you. There are also questions about how universally attainable flow really is. Mihaly's original research focused heavily on people with real autonomy over their tasks: artists, climbers, surgeons. For someone in a rigid, closely monitored job with little control over the pace or method achieving the delicate challenge, skill balance flow requires may be structurally much harder, regardless of their personal skill or effort. So why does a 1990 psychological concept still matter today? Because flow has become the unspoken design goal behind an enormous share of modern technology and entertainment. Video games are explicitly engineered around dynamic difficulty adjustment, deliberately keeping players in that narrow channel between boredom and anxiety. Productivity culture now openly chases flow through techniques like deep work and deliberate practice, treating sustained, focused engagement as a skill to be cultivated rather than a matter of luck. At the same time, flow theory offers one of the sharpest critiques of the modern attention economy we discussed earlier in this series. Algorithmically optimized feeds are explicitly designed to produce compulsive engagement without ever requiring the skill growth. Flow actually depends on creating something that feels absorbing in the moment but leaves people afterward feeling strangely empty rather than genuinely fulfilled. So we've moved from Carnegie's outward of connecting with others to Maslow's map of what we need to grow to Bandura's mechanism for believing that growth is possible, and now to Mihaly's description of what genuine healthy engagement actually feels like while it's happening, but Flow describes single immersive moments extremely well. It says far less about how those moments add up over time, how a person sustains motivation, discipline, and direction across the months and years it actually takes to build any meaningful skill or achieve any meaningful goal, especially through the inevitable stretches that don't feel like flow at all. That question belongs to our next chapter, Carol Dweck and the psychology of mindset, where we ask not what a peak moment feels like, but what a person believes about their own ability to change over the long and glamorous run. Thank you very much and see you next time.